The deep space mining rig Acheron-7 was anchored to a rogue planet drifting outside the Milky Way while the skeleton crew worked in 12-hour shifts to extract the rarest mineral in the known universe, and Engineer Silas Vance was monitoring the seismic drills when the sensors recorded a rhythmic tapping coming from deep inside the planet's core because something was knocking back from the darkness. Then the drilling lights flickered and died while a thick purple mist began to leak from the ventilation shafts. Then Silas checked the security cameras only to see his crewmates standing perfectly still in the corridors with their eyes rolled back and their mouths open in a silent scream. Then he realized that the mineral they were mining was actually the calcified remains of a prehistoric cosmic entity, and the vibration of the drills had awakened its consciousness while the air pressure began to drop because the rig's life support was being consumed by a shadow parasite. Then Silas grabbed an emergency oxygen tank and ran toward the communications deck while the walls of the rig started to melt into a black liquid that felt like frozen glass. Then a voice whispered through his headset that sounded like 1,000 dying stars because the Void Reacher had found a host and it wanted to see the light of a sun for the first time in 1 billion years. While Silas tried to send a distress signal to the nearest Federation outpost, then he saw a reflection in the monitor of a tall, thin creature standing directly behind him, but when he turned around there was nothing there. Because the entity existed in the blind spots of human vision, then the rig began to tilt as the rogue planet started to collapse into a localized black hole while the gravity stabilizers screamed in a high-pitched frequency. Then Silas reached the bridge and saw the captain floating in the center of the room, surrounded by glowing symbols that were burning into the metal floor because the ship was being turned into a gateway for the void dimension. Then the entity spoke through the captain's mouth and told Silas that humanity was just a biological experiment left behind by a race of gods who had long since vanished. While the oxygen levels hit 5% and his vision started to blur, then he found a manual override for the rig's self-destruct sequence because he knew that if this entity reached a populated system it would be the end of all life. Then he pressed the button while the purple mist wrapped around his throat like a cold hand, and he felt his soul being pulled out of his body because the Void Reacher was trying to save its memory inside his mind. Then the rig exploded in a silent flash of white light while the rogue planet vanished into the singularity. Then Silas woke up in a medical bay on a distant space station, but he noticed that he could no longer see the color blue because his eyes had been altered by the void, and he looked at the doctors, but they all had the same shadowy figures standing in their blind spots. Then he realized that the explosion hadn't killed the entity because it had successfully jumped into his nervous system. While he began to feel the rhythmic tapping inside his own skull, then he walked to the window and looked out at the stars while he felt a sudden hunger to consume their light because he was now the vessel of the void. Then the station's computer began to malfunction while the lights dimmed to a ghostly purple hue because the Void Reacher was finally home and the harvest of the galaxy was about to begin. While the silence of space felt like a warm blanket over his new consciousness. Practice words calcified, hardened like bone or stone over a long period. Blind spot, an area where a person's view is obstructed or invisible. Seismic, relating to vibrations or earthquakes within a planet. Singularity, a point of infinite density at the center of a black hole. Brain teaser: if Silas can now see entities in the blind spots of others, does that make him a hero or the most dangerous person on the station? Write your answer in the comments below.